Hello there, and welcome to Better Than This. This is a show for ambitious humans who are tired of the status quo playbook and are looking for something better. My name is Meghan French Dunbar, and I've spent the last decade exploring what it would take to improve work for everyone, to discover whether or not it's possible to succeed in business without being forced to sacrifice ourselves, without the chronic stress, the burnout, guilt, overwhelm, the anxiety. Good news, it is. As an author, entrepreneur, journalist, and resident instigator, I've interviewed over 1,000 extraordinary business leaders who've achieved success by throwing the old playbook out the window and doing everything differently. What's even better is that this new playbook improves your performance, your workplace, and your life. If you're ready to admit that the way we're working isn't working and are looking for something better than this, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Better Than This. Every week, we're going to get real, go deep, and hopefully have some fun as we discuss research-backed ways to actually improve your work, your workplace, and your life. My name is Meghan French Dunbar, and my most profound hope as a result of our time together is that you walk away understanding that there is a better way to work and live, and that you feel inspired to begin making changes in your own life. Why? Well, put simply, the way we're working isn't working. I don't know about you, but I am tired of watching wonderful, ambitious, delightful human beings get chewed up and spit out in a system, especially when it can be so much better than this. Hence the whole podcast title, Better Than This. So your next question might be, okay, lady, who are you and why should I be listening to you on this topic? And I'm going to be like, yeah, I have been asking myself the same thing. And I think I actually have a legitimate answer here. So as mentioned, my name is Meghan, and for more than a decade now, I have been studying, I think what I would call it is better business, good business, impact business, businesses that are actually doing good for the world in some way. 13 years ago, I did my MBA with a focus on sustainable management. I took that and 5 months publishing experience, and in the summer of 2014, crowdfunded the launch of a business magazine. I essentially, with my co-founder, we were like, why doesn't a business magazine exist for people who want to hear about business leaders that are doing good for the world, people that are creating incredible workplaces, people that are solving societal issues with business? So we launched Conscious Company magazine. I've got some behind me here. Here's one with Eileen Fisher, for those of you who are, randomly watching me on video. Our first issue came out January 1st, 2015. We were picked up by every Whole Foods in the nation. And suddenly this kind of little project, this dream of mine went from like, oh, let's just see if we can do this to like, oh, holy sweet potatoes, I am at the helm of a nationally distributed print magazine about sustainable business. And I was 30 years old at the time. And we did the whole entrepreneur's journey. We did the investment round, raised, over $700,000, built it into media companies. So we had the print magazine, but then we also had an in-person event series called the Conscious Company Leaders Forum, where we ultimately it ended up being, over 1,000 impact-driven business leaders from around the world together to have conversations around this type of stuff. We launched a women's only component called World Changing Women. So we had the World Changing Women Summit, the World Changing Women's podcast. And I'm naming all of this because every single one of these entities, the events, the podcast, the magazine, enabled me to be able to interview extraordinary leaders. People like Eileen Fisher, people like Chip Conley of Joie de Vivre Hotels, Susan Griffin Black, Alpha Demelash, like the people who I idolized in my MBA program. I was getting to sit down and have conversations with them and learn about how they were creating extraordinary businesses that weren't ruining the people that were working within and were actually doing good things for society in some way. So then I ended up, we sold that company in 2017. I stayed on as CEO until early 2020. I resigned in February of 2020, unbeknownst to me that a month later, global lockdown, all the things, emerged out of the dark times of COVID, and have been doing CEO retreats and CEO masterminds. I do leadership workshops, so I get to go into incredible companies like Kate Spade and Coach and Leonard Green and Charter Next Generation and do, deep dive leadership retreats or women's retreats. And then over the last 2 years, I have written a book. Of course, I've got like all my props. Oh, it just like happens to be here, this magazine and this book right here. This isn't working. This comes out August 2025. And again, afforded me the opportunity to be able to interview nearly 100 incredible leaders all about the ways in which work is broken and how we can fix it. So that's the kind of why, here's some credentials. I like to say I'm kind of like the Steve Irwin of good business. I geek out about this stuff. I know so much, but instead of being like, oh, it's a crocodile, let's look at this. I'm like, let's look at open book management. I mean, I don't have a weird, terrible Australian accent when I do it, but I love showing people incredible business theories and practices. I love learning about business and teaching other people about it. It is a passion of mine, and we all have our thing. No judgment. Mine happens to be, purpose-driven business. So that's the kind of who I am. I had, of course, the whole existential journey when I was like, oh gosh, the podcast scene is so crowded and we don't need another podcast. And why would I do this? Self-doubt, all the crippling internal monologue around why, even with, these respective credentials, I still shouldn't launch a podcast. But fortunately, I had a great conversation the other day with Josh from Brink Media, who has a podcast called This Is Propaganda. And he was like, Megan, didn't you just write a book? And I was like, I did. What's your point? And he's like, well, aren't there a ton of other books in the world? And I was like, yeah. He's like, so why did you write a book? And I said, well, because I felt like I had this incredible information from all of these incredible leaders that I had to share with people. And he said, well, same thing with podcasts. It's just another content medium. So just because there's lots of other podcasts in the world doesn't mean that if you have something valuable to say, you shouldn't say it. And I was like, oh, smart guy. And it got me thinking about, we're going to go all the way to Spider-Man here. Instead of with great power comes great responsibility, I had the thought that with great knowledge comes great responsibility. And that's what I feel like I have the gift of, is an extensive knowledge base, because I've been able to learn at the feet of so many inspiring business leaders who are doing business in a different way, anti-status quo, who've actually figured out ways to build healthy, happy cultures where everyone at the organization is thriving, including the leaders themselves. And they're actually creating some sort of value for the world as a result of existing besides just making money. So with my great knowledge comes great responsibility. I was like, I'm going to do this. Podcasts are a great medium for democratizing access to information. I got to do this. And so here we go. We're going to do it. And I'm really, really grateful that you're doing it with me. I promise I'm going to keep this as real as humanly possible. We're going to shake it up and be kind of anti-status quo about the format. Sometimes I'll be chatting quite a bit. Sometimes we'll be live interviewing other people. Sometimes we'll be having roundtable discussions. I mean, we're going to kind of go all over the place, but the general common denominator is exploring leadership, workplace, mindset shifts, ways in which to improve your work and your life. And turns out they aren't actually separate. They, in fact, are integrated. And so the more you improve one, the more you improve both. So that's the jam, what we're going to do together. And we're going to dive in on this first episode, kind of the foundations of which all of it is built. Why does work suck so bad? Like the deeper issues. Why are so many of us stressed out and struggling? I don't know if you've had this experience where you're talking to a friend or you see someone who you haven't seen in a while and you're like, how are you doing? And I think the most common responses are like, I'm hanging in there. Like, oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so stressed. It's overwhelmed. More like, the go-to. Fine. Everything's fine. We're great. Doing fine. Living the dream. We're all aware that we're all really stressed out and struggling, but we kind of don't really want to talk about it. But we kind of wear it as a badge of honor that we're overwhelmed and stressed out, but we actually don't think that we can fix anything about it. So we just kind of push through and keep going. This was very much the place that I was living at. So going back 2017, like I said, we had crowdfunded the launch of this magazine, done an investment round, built a team. We have this whole media company. And the kind of day-to-day stress and pressure of running a company was a lot. And in like the spring of 2017, I'm reviewing our company's financials, and barring some sort of miraculous increase in revenue or us doing another investment round, like pretty quickly on the heels of our last one, we have about 6 to 7 months of runway left for our company and are facing an issue of where we potentially are going to run out of money by the end of the year. And the stress and pressure of this moment, it was like all of the day-to-day, working extra hours, working on the weekends, not having any time to myself, being worried about my employees and making payroll and all of the things, they all just kind of hit me all at once. And I still remember I was sitting in the guest room of our old condo here in Boulder, Colorado, where I still live. And I was looking out the back window, and it all kind of hits me at once. I couldn't catch my breath. I like having like shortness of breath. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling like pretty sincere chest pains. And I'm having such a hard time pulling myself together that I end up just having to lay down on the hardwood floor, and I grab a pillow and I just like am screaming into this pillow. And at this point, my husband is hearing what's going on. I hear him running up the stairs with our 85-pound dog, Chloe, on his heels, and he bursts into the guest room, finds me crumpled on the floor, and like looking up, I will never forget the terrified look in my husband's eyes as he's looking at me having a complete panic attack, and having the stress of my career impact my health in such a way that I genuinely didn't know if I was having a heart attack or not. And I was 33 at the time. And then I woke up the next day. He helped me get through it. We talked about it. At some point that evening, he was like, I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. And I was like, I know, like something has to change. Something's going to change. I promise I'm going to make it better. I woke up the next day and just like went right back to work because I had to, right? I'm the infallible leader. I can't show weakness. I have to just keep pushing through. And I just go back to work because it just feels normal, right? I feel like behind the scenes, everyone I've talked to is stressed. Everyone's overwhelmed. I've heard of other people who've had panic attacks. This is somewhat normal, right? This is the cost of doing business. This is the cost of success. I'd heard something similar from my friend Stephanie Nadi Olson. She is the founder and former CEO of We Are Rosie. This was how she talked to me about her experience.
I started the business. My kids were 2 and 4 years old. I started immediately working 80-hour weeks. There was like no delineation between weekdays and weekends, nights and 2 a.m. and 11 p.m. and all the things. It was whatever it takes. It's a slippery slope where you start ignoring things. My body would just wake up in like full anxiety, like adrenaline response at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. every day. I never slept past 4:30 a.m. while I was building We Are Rosie. And sometimes I was up till midnight working the night before. And so those things just become part of your like normal. And you're like, I'm doing okay, but you don't realize like you're not okay. And I herniated a disc in my neck. When I actually received the letter of intent from our investors at We Are Rosie after bootstrapping the company for 4 years, I was in the hospital getting an injection in my spine for my herniated disc that is 100% caused by stress and looking down at my computer for 4 years. I started to realize again, at what cost? I was having panic attacks. I was on anxiety and depression meds. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders for creating this movement and supporting the people that were coming to We Are Rosie every day and working so hard. And I was just crushed. It was just more than any one person I think could handle for that duration of time.
So I don't know about you. You're hearing these stories, and this is like when we let our stress and our overwhelm and our anxiety kind of play out to the end. These are the things that can happen. Panic attacks, being hospitalized, physical health issues, mental health issues. We often just wait until it gets so bad that there's some sort of event that is so bad that it's finally the moment where we're like, okay, maybe I'll make some changes. Or we wait for that terrible event to happen. It happens, and then we maybe go to a therapy once or twice, and then we just get right back in the saddle. We're all this societal culture of stress, overwhelm, exhaustion, but everything's fine. Everything's fine, right? I went back to work. We sold our company in 2017. Of course, I was like, everything's going to be fine now. And turns out if you stay on as CEO, there's like crippling stress and pressure and anxiety, just as there always is in everything that you do professionally. I stayed on, ended up having a child in 2019. And when I came back from maternity leave in the fall of 2019, I had no gas left in my tank. Was just done. Like I had lost my passion for what I was doing. I was barely able to get out of bed every day, just completely burnt out. And I had this moment of realizing that I was not the leader that I wanted to be for my team. And I was definitely not the mother I wanted to be for my first child, or the partner I wanted to be for my husband, or the friend I wanted to be for my friends. I was not in any way healthy. So I decided to resign, and we, of course, all entered the dark times of 2020. In the deep, dark recesses of my brain in 2020 and 2021, as we all contended with various traumas, I started wondering, does it have to be this way? Is it just a foregone conclusion that we have to suffer and sacrifice ourselves to be successful and to have high achieving careers, to be in the business world at all? Is it just, this is just the price of success? Or is there a better way? My friend Courtney Klein talks about when you have an insistent idea, she talks about it as like a raspberry seed stuck in your tooth that like it just can't get out. It felt like that to me. It's just something I couldn't stop wondering about. And so I played with it and turned it into a book proposal. I actually get a book deal, and I get to then go write a book about it. Is there a better way to do business? Can it be better than this? And I knew that throughout my career of interviewing all these incredible business leaders, I had met people who weren't struggling. They had traditional markers of success. And I was like, wait, you're not like overly stressed and I'm going into your business and everyone seems happy here. Like, what is this? Like, this must be an anomaly. But there were enough proof points where I was like, no, I think they might be doing something different here. I don't think this is a one-off. Susan Griffin Black, she's at EO Products, hand soaps and lotions. Alpha Demolash of Rising Tide Capital. I was like, oh yeah, she knows something. Jane Warwand of Dermalogica Skincare. Eileen Fisher. There was just like, I kept coming across these leaders, and there were enough that convinced me that they knew something that the rest of us didn't. So these are the people that I interviewed for the book, and it turns out there is, in fact, a better way. I call it the new playbook as compared to our contemporary toxic, harmful playbook that most of us are playing by in the business world. And when we're talking about how many people are in the business world, we're talking at this point about a global workforce of over 3.5 billion human beings across the face of the planet in the workforce using, for the most part, a old, outdated, toxic playbook that doesn't work for most of the people in the system. So there is this new playbook, and there's ways that are proven, research backed. Every single thing we're going to talk about the humans who've implemented it and proven it, the research behind it, and practices you can do for yourself. So this is not just, anecdotes of this one woman tried it and it worked. Vetted information here, people. These are ways to improve performance, both individual and company performance, improve your workplace in some way, and improve your life. Those are kind of the ways in which I think about this: workplace, life. And it's what we're going to dig into throughout the entire podcast. There are all of the different methodologies, leadership, workplace practices, mindset reshifts of how to adopt a new playbook and potentially not struggle, maybe even flourish and thrive while you're working. It's possible. I know. I didn't think it was. I'm telling you, it is. All right, so why work isn't working. Let's get into it. To start, we're actually going to look at some of the key reasons that we feel stress, burnout, and contend with mental health issues. So, per the American Psychological Association, 3 of the top stressors that we continually feel are economic insecurity, concerns about money, job loss, and work pressure, or feeling overwhelmed or overworked at work. Then we have mental health concerns. Some of the key predictors of mental health issues are social isolation or feeling discriminated against, loneliness, long-term or chronic stress, social or cultural expectations, and self-sacrificing behavior or not taking care of yourself. And then when it comes to burnout, the 6 key predictors of burnout are feeling overworked, compromising your values, isolation or lack of community, feeling like things are unfair, not being rewarded or acknowledged properly, and feeling a lack of control or autonomy. So these are kind of stress, mental health issues, burnout. We're going to pull these into some of the key ways in which we do business after we talk about one of the key drivers that is informing the way that we currently do business. So business, the idea of exchanging goods or service for some sort of financial gain or profit. When we look at the history of business, it developed about 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, where the first currency was discovered. About 3,000 years ago, we have our first organizations that can enter into contracts or independently own property in India. So for the last few thousand years, the idea of business has evolved as a way that we structure social interactions as humans. And the key thing to know here is that it is, in fact, a social construction. As cute little humans, we made it up, and we're still making it up. We make up the rules, we make up the norms, the practices, the expectations, and also the idea of what success in business means. And currently, these norms, these practices, all of the ways in which we think about how we do business impact pretty much all life on Earth. Currently, we have more than 3.5 billion people in the global workforce, and business as an entity impacts all lives on Earth and all living things on Earth. It has immense power to either for good. It can lift people out of poverty. It can create solutions and innovation to societal problems. It can give people purpose. It can give people an entire new perspective on life. It also has immense ability to harm and to destroy. And unfortunately, at this point in history, we're kind of trending a bit more towards the whole destroying things thing. Why? Well, not to point all of the blame at this one particular ideal, but there is one kind of core aspect of business that has created a more harmful paradigm than nearly anything else, and that has happened over the last 50 years. So in 1970, in September of 1970, Milton Friedman wrote his now famous New York Times piece in which he proposed that, quote, "There is one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profit so long as it stays within the rules of the game." Whatever the rules of the game are, like, who really knows? Like, as long as it's like legal-ish or like legal adjacent, and even if it's not really legal, like, you'll just kind of get a fine, but we're not going to worry about that. So we have this kind of profit at all cost, shareholder supremacy paradigm is introduced in the 1970s. Also in 1970, the SEC requires that publicly traded companies have quarterly earnings reports to protect investors. So all of a sudden, not only is it profit at all cost, but it's profit at all cost under a very short timeline. Every 3 months, you have to produce earnings reports. So this short-termism, profit at all costs, becomes the predominant way that we're looking at why businesses exist. And so we're telling leaders that their sole responsibility is to maximize profit. They can do whatever they want to do so as long as it's legal-ish, that their job security depends on them maximizing profit, performing better than their competitors, and doing so as quickly as humanly possible, and that their performance is going to, if they're publicly traded, that their performance is going to be analyzed every 3 months or so. So we're essentially incentivizing business leaders to be as ruthless and creative as humanly possible in taking advantage of other people and resources so that they can succeed. And this encourages many business leaders to start doing things like reducing worker pay below poverty levels, cutting corners on safety measures, working employees to the bone, extracting natural resources without worrying about the impact on other people, and even going so far as to suppress research that demonstrates their products are in fact killing people. Purdue, Monsanto. So this profit-driven only short-term paradigm has caused immeasurable harm to society. So macro issues, we have income inequality is continuing to widen through things like wage stagnation, employee reduction, outsourcing work to the lowest bidder. Since the introduction of shareholder supremacy, the middle class has decreased from more than 60% to less than 50% in the United States. The top 1% of American earners now have more wealth than the entire middle class combined, and 1 out of 7 people worldwide don't have enough money to meet their basic needs. So we have kind of widening socioeconomic disparity where the winners take all, and those who are not in the very, very top echelons are getting further and further pushed down. We also have environmental destruction, kind of the profit at all cost. You can exploit natural resources. There's all sorts of issues with this, deforestation, climate change. These are kind of the macro issues. These leaders are pressured. They now have a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions that negatively impact other people's lives and the earth as long as business is profiting. And one of the statistics I found that kind of blew my mind when I was researching for the book is that while 1% of the general population is considered a psychopath, meaning lacking conscience, empathy, or remorse, 20% of CEOs are. I guess this kind of makes sense when you're thinking about the leaders are forced into a situation in which they have to treat people like they are resources, and they have to make decisions that negatively impact tons and tons of other people and animals and life on Earth. As long as it's okay for their company, it follows that some of these people, in fact, just have to be psychopaths in order to succeed. On the other end of the spectrum, we look at C-suite leaders and executives and CEOs are dealing with depression at twice the rate of the general population. So either you have to be a psychopath to succeed in this paradigm, or you get to compromise your values and feel, generally more depressed than other living people. Not good. So how this impacts us, the day-to-day worker, and I will say this comes with the caveat that, yes, there's going to be some major generalizations when we're talking about a system that impacts, 3.5 billion people every day. Not all of this is going to apply to every single person. That said, some of this might resonate, all of this might resonate, or if none of it resonates, congratulations. You're working in a very anti-establishment organization, and that's good news. But most organizations, contemporary organizations, are following, there's 5 different organizational principles that I really identify as being the most harmful, that specifically tie to some of the key reasons that we are stressed, burnt out, and dealing with mental and physical health issues. In order to maximize profit, when we talk about business culture, we have a lot of business leaders who've created what I call win at all cost, high pressure, growth oriented cultures. And within these, they put tremendous stress, pressure, and demand on each of their individual workers. So they're overly demanding. They're making people do more with less. They're saying you need to do whatever it takes to win in order to secure your job here. You need to work after hours. You need to produce more. You have to go above and beyond. And we get to this place where that becomes the narrative that it's absolutely fine for employers to ask for you to work on the weekends, that overwork is a common principle, that we're all workaholics and that's totally fine. So when we look at how this belief system is leading to the ways in which we're feeling all of the terrible things that we're feeling, when we think about burnout, one of the key predictors of burnout is overwork. When we think about stress, one of the key predictors of stress is feeling job stress, work stress, feeling pressure, high demands at work. And another key driver of burnout is feeling like you have a lack of control. And especially when it comes to workaholics who have let work take over all of their life, they feel like they don't have any control over their time or what they're doing anymore. Everything is about work. So the overly stressed, high demand work cultures are directly leading to burnout, stress, all of the things that we're feeling. We also have cost-cutting scenarios. So looks like wage stagnation, paying people the absolute bare minimum and then expecting the most. This also looks like cutting costs on safety measures, cutting corners, kind of trying to get every possible penny out of an organization and its people by squeezing them for all they're worth. 3 million workers die annually as a result of work-related injuries or disease, and an estimated 400 million people every year are hurt on the job. When we are underpaid, that was a key source of stress. When we fear for job loss, another key source of stress that we feel. And when we're talking about things like being worried about our safety when we go to work, this causes an element of psychological stress, chronic stress, where we're in this fear-based place where we're constantly worried about our own safety and well-being. So cost-cutting scenarios, another key reason a lot of people are contending with mental health issues. Number 3, rigid hierarchy and fear-based command and control organizational structure. So this kind of post-World War II militaristic structures of command and control, of one leader at the top, some like generals around, let's say him, and they're making all of the decisions for everyone. Everyone on lower levels is just supposed to obey without question. So we have a select few group of people who have all of the information, are making the decisions, and no one is told what's going on, with the exception of you're told to do what to do, when to do it, where to do it, who to do it with, when to do it by. Every single decision is made for you. You are not valued or brought in on decision making. You are kind of not seen or acknowledged or heard. It's a very undignified, disenfranchised way to work if you are not in a leadership position at one of these very rigid, hierarchical command and control cultures, which is how most companies are set up nowadays. So there's so many issues that come back again when we're talking about burnout and mental health issues. When we burn out, one of the key predictors is lack of autonomy and control, which if you are working in a rigid hierarchy and you're not in a leadership position, you very rarely feel like you have any voice or choice or any agency over what you're doing. There's also just this implicit lack of dignity, which when we're thinking the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the core pillar that they identify is feeling dignity, feeling respected, valued, acknowledged, heard, seen. We don't feel dignity any time when we're going into an organization where we're completely disenfranchised and devalued. There's also a key driver of burnout is not being acknowledged or rewarded. When you're in a very hierarchical organization, the only people who are truly valued and asked for their opinion are the people at the top. You don't feel acknowledged. You don't feel valued at these organizations if you're a mere minion at one of the lower levels. There's also a tremendous amount of fear-based, cutthroat, toxic abuse from managers. They feel justified in using fear, intimidation, and dominance as long as they're getting results, right? And discrimination, feeling abused, these lead to mental health issues. And when you don't feel psychologically safe, if you're contending with a manager who is using fear, who is using kind of toxic ways of getting results, you feel this kind of pervasive sense of chronic stress. Chronic stress was one of the key reasons that we have mental health issues. So you can start to see why some of the ways in which our commonly accepted business principles are actually driving extraordinary amounts of burnout, stress, and mental health issues. Issue number 4, individualistic, hyper-competitive workplace cultures. And this is like Everyone is out for themselves. There's both competition between organizations in the same industry, but also internally. This is your success is based on your individual performance. You're pitted against your peers for promotions or raises. You're kind of focused on setting yourself apart, beating the people around you, and you do whatever it takes to win on the individual level, because everyone is either their raises or their bonuses or their promotions are based on individual performance. And then everything externally is about crushing, dominating, and competing with other industry peers. There's no sense of collaboration. And so, again, going back to some of our key drivers of mental health issues, overwork. This is one of the reasons we overwork ourselves. When our success is based on our individual performance, we overwork, we stress ourselves, we feel tremendous anxiety, and so we burn out. This also is a tremendously isolating way to work. When everything's based on individual performance and competition, you're isolated, you're lonely, you're out for yourself. Everybody is someone to be competed with rather than someone to work with and collaborate with. You also get into this kind of perpetual cycle of self-sacrifice because you want to set yourself apart. You want to go above and beyond. You need the raise. You need the promotion because, going back to cost cutting, you're probably not making enough money anyways to make ends meet. So you are self-sacrificing, which is one of the key reasons that we have mental health and physical health concerns. Good stuff. Number 5, last one, I promise. The winner takes all mentality. So shareholder supremacy, the key reason that a business exists is to maximize profit for shareholders. In most cases, shareholders, company owners, investors, maybe some key executives. All of the winnings, all of the spoils, all of the success of the organization goes to this one group, instead of the people who are working there day in and day out and all of the other key stakeholders who are making the organization successful. And while this has become commonplace and we just are like, yeah, that's just kind of how it is, it's not fair. Inherently, it's not a fair way to do business when nobody who's actually making the company succeed on the day-to-day is acknowledged through financial success of the company when the company has a windfall. That all goes to just the people at the top without acknowledging the people at the bottom, which this, again, key driver of burnout, not being acknowledged for your work. And another key driver of burnout is feeling that things are unfair, which this is kind of inherent within this structure of the winner takes all, F the employees. So there are 5 issues that we're contending with on a daily basis: overly demanding, high stress, high pressure work cultures, cost cutting workplaces where people are paid less and safety measures are not taken into account, rigid, fear-based, hierarchical command and control cultures, hyper-competitive, individualistic cultures, and winner-takes-all paradigm. All of these relate to some of the key drivers that we feel as humans of why we are burning out, feeling stressed, and having mental and physical health issues. So perhaps there's maybe some part of you that can start seeing like, oh, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's business. Maybe I'm not the problem. Perhaps it's the organization I work for that is making all of us feel this way, because it is literally built in a way that drives some of the key reasons that we struggle as humans. At this point, we have more than 75% of workers reporting that they have experienced burnout at their current workplace. 3 out of 5 workers report experiencing some sort of negative mental or physical health issue as a result of work-related stress. More than 85% of workers experiencing moderate, high, or extreme work-related stress in the last year, and a full 60% of employees saying that their work has a higher impact on their mental health compared to anything else in their life. Take a minute to let that sit in. That is just, these numbers are staggering. And what I think we kind of overlook with these numbers is like, yes, it's normalized. Yes, everyone we know is stressed and overworked and overwhelmed and feeling burnt out. And there are serious consequences to this. Very, very serious. It is destroying people's lives. When you feel stress, the physiological response in your body when you feel stress is your blood pressure rises, your immune and digestive systems slow down, your ability to grow and repair tissue decreases, you have increased inflammation in your body. The number of diseases and ailments associated with increased inflammation, it's a huge list, including things like cardiovascular dysfunction, diabetes, cancer, autoimmune disorders, as well as mental illness such as depression and anxiety. When the American Psychological Association asked people about what are the physical symptoms that they experience when they feel stress, some of the top answers were feeling irritable, angry, fatigue and exhaustion, lack of interest and motivation, feeling nervous or anxious, headaches, and feeling depressed or sad. Stress destroys people's lives. Black Monday syndrome refers to the fact that more people have heart attacks on Monday, the first day of the working week, than any other day of the week. This is the system we're all trying to succeed within. This is the status quo that we're going to work day in and day out, that we are forcing ourselves to succeed within and trying to then kind of dust ourselves off and pick ourselves up when we leave work and have a normal, healthy, happy life. All of this to say, you're not alone. If you're feeling like, wow, is there something better? Am I the only one who's feeling like this? Is this supposed to feel like this? Because like at what point does it start to feel good? You're not alone. The way that we're doing business, the way that we are working isn't working. Fortunately, I didn't set out to launch a podcast all about the ways in which business are broken and you're screwed and don't worry, there's no solutions. There are tons of solutions. This is what I have been studying for the last decade. It's what I wrote this entire book about. And it's what I call, there's the kind of the old playbook, which is what we detailed today, versus the new playbook. There are tons of business leaders out there who have built organizations built around new playbook principles, things like collaboration, shared success, optimizing and sustained performance, all sorts of incredible new practices, all sorts of belief systems that they have set around their business that are proven to improve individual performance, their business performance, improve the workplace for the people that are working there, and the lives of everyone there. Like, no big deal. If we can solve this, we can just kind of like casually improve 3.5 billion people's lives and save the world and save humanity. Yeah. All through this one single podcast. You're welcome. So this is what we're going to talk about. For episode 2, I promise I won't be talking at you quite as much. I really needed to just kind of set the foundations, set the context. We'll go into a lot of this stuff a lot deeper, and we're going to start getting into the key practices that you can bring into your work and your life to start making work better for all, including yourself. So I'm excited. I'm so grateful that you're here with me on this journey, and hopefully I'll see you in episode 2. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to Better Than This. As a reminder, you can always find show notes and any corresponding resources for the show on the show's website at meghanfrenchdunbar.com/betterthanthis. And if today's episode resonated with you, I would be very grateful if you could leave a review or a rating on whichever podcast platform you're listening to the show on, or share the episode with a friend who you think would appreciate it. You can also subscribe to my Stack for weekly insights and tools to support your growth along the way. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo so we can, wait for it, build something better than this. Take care.